Thank you. Welcome everyone to tonight's Woolwich Township Council meeting, Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. Before we start, I'll remind Council that this portion of the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube, as well as being broadcast on Rogers TV. I will also remind Council to speak clearly and project a voice when they're talking so people viewing at home can hear. I'm going to start with a roll call of Council for the benefit of the public watching this meeting. When I call your name, please wave at your camera and say here or present. I'm Mayor Shantz, I'm present and chairing this meeting. Councillor Martin.
Present.
Councillor McMillan.
Present.
Councillor Merlihan.
I'm present.
Councillor Redekop will be joining us later, and Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Thank you. I should go in reverse order sometime just to throw everybody off. Motion that Council reconvenes in open session. Moved by Councillor Merlihan, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Hang on a second while I grab my. The land on which we meet has been here from time immemorial. People have inhabited southern Ontario for about 10,000 years, and we acknowledge the Awandaron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples who lived here when settlers arrived and who share this land with us. May we together learn to care for and respect each other, our flora and fauna, and the land we inhabit together. This has been a year like no other. It's challenged us both professionally and personally. We've lost loved ones. We found new ways to connect. The cracks in our society have been laid bare. We're finding ways to slowly work to mend those relationships. We have overused words like unprecedented and pivot, and those two words contain a plethora of innuendo and feelings and hopes. As we move toward vaccinating our residents and reopening our economic and social lives, let's take a moment to acknowledge the lessons learned, the lives disrupted, and those whom we mourn. We'll just take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none. Actually, I think, Pat, there's one in the bylaws, but we'll acknowledge that when we get to it. There's nothing to come forward from closed. A motion that the following minutes be adopted as presented. February 23rd council minutes, March 9th committee of the whole minutes, and March 9th special council minutes. Moved by Councillor Shantz and seconded by Councillor McMillan. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have no planning public and no presentations this evening. Before we get started with the delegations, Jared Poupé, Director of Infrastructure Services, would like to address Council first. Mr. Poupé.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Through you to members of Council, I just wanted to reiterate, we've had a number of these requests this year. It's quite abnormal, I would suggest, for typical years. People seeking exemptions from the seasonal load limit restrictions. And I just wanted to reiterate to Council staff's position again on this, that we would only look to provide exemptions if there was an imminent road reconstruction project or some form occurring in that immediate year. Then, of course, as we've done in Breslaw, that makes sense to staff. Where we have our gravel roads, obviously, is a challenge for us and our road network. And staff again are just reiterating that we do not endorse exemptions on the seasonal load limit, and that's really all we wanted to say to Council this time.
Are there any questions for Jared before we move to the delegations? Okay, thank you. We have 4 delegations this evening. First, I'd like to remind the delegates of some guidelines for participating in tonight's meeting. Please leave your video turned off and your microphone muted until you are asked to speak. You will have 10 minutes to speak to council. After you speak, please wait for questions from council. Once there are no further questions, please turn your microphone and camera off again. You can continue watching with your mic and camera off, or you can leave the meeting whenever you want. We will start with Stacy Fry from Adu Farms, and this is one of our half load exemption requests. Mr. Fry, go ahead.
Hello?
Yep, perfect, thank you.
All right. Yeah, so I'm looking for an exemption for our side road here. We are needing to pour some concrete for a storage silo for the crop that comes off at the end of May. Reason I'm needing this storage, I guess, is because the storage we previously had was lost in a barn fire July 31st. And there was no plan, and I wanted to avoid having to bring concrete in the half load season. Actually, the plan was to get the silo foundations in the fall already, but ran into issues being, I guess, first off, too close to St. Jacobs with rebuilding a barn in the current position or very close to it because of the manure storage, and St. Jacobs boundary lines, I guess, are too close. So we had to shift over to the other side away from our current building. And there we did eventually get a okay and a permit to build there. I received those, I believe, middle of December. So basically what the need is we need one silo up in time just to put feed into for the cattle, since the crop is ready at the end of May. Half load usually, well, comes off May 1st, but the contractor is telling me he's gonna have a hard time getting it up in that short a period of time. Wondering if we can get some concrete in there and poured before May 1st. So it'd be nice if we could just pour one silo. Problem is the pad is for 3 silos, and that's why the volume is where it's at. We would do one, but our space is limited since we've been shifted over by the village of St. Jacobs that we want to stay away from. So our silos need a pad to remain close enough together to not interfere with, I guess, our neighboring property line and our manure storage. So basically, we're looking at 26 full loads for this pad for 3 silos. Otherwise, I guess we would have to go with, I guess, a half load, which concrete trucks would be 2 meters. And we'd be looking at about 120 truckloads coming in our side road here, which of course will add a huge price on top. And then, yeah, basically it's for our cattle storage which our cattle won't be coming here till August, but it's just the fact that the crop is ready at the end of May.
Thanks.
Any questions?
Council, any questions? Councilor McMillan?
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Through you, you said that you'd lost the previous storage in a fire. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sure that can't be easy to deal with. I was wondering if some of the rebuilding costs was covered by insurance, and wouldn't the insurance claim cover the additional cost of the half load delivery?
That's a good question. So in insurance, in this case, they have been very good. They cover the cleanup of the silos that get torn down, and they also cover up the current what we were insured for. Any of the new building, insurance doesn't look at that at all. They only look at what we did have and what we were covered for.
Any other questions?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to the delegate. Just to reiterate, Councillor McMillan, sorry to hear about your barn, losing the barn and having a fire. That's pretty devastating sometimes. Can you tell us what will happen to your crop if you've got nowhere to put it?
Good question. I haven't thought that too far on that yet. Whether we find somebody to purchase it at the time, of course, we'd have to find a way to purchase some back once our animals are there, so we have enough feed for them for this coming winter, because we're expecting hopefully to have them everything ready by sometime in August. There's the dry hay baling. Could be an option, I guess, too. Of course, we do have lots of hay from the end of last year. That's what we did with our crop after the fire. So we have ample amount of the hay. This would be in a form of haylage, which obviously helps the milk production of our dairy cows.
Thank you.
Councillor Shantz?
Thank you through you to the delegate. When would you be planning on pouring that? You say that the half load comes off May 1st. Are you looking a week in advance, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, we would, I guess we're looking at April 19th forward, and probably just 4 days, because I believe there's your foundation, and then I guess there's 3 different pours. So for sure, 3 different days of pouring within that week time is what we'd be looking at.
And are these concrete?
I mean,
silos?
unless it would make sense to do it sooner if the conditions were better, we'd definitely do that. I mean, right this week the roads are dry and in great shape, but nobody's ready for that, and it's very early. But
And are these regular silos that are getting used or getting built, or are they lower structures like bunkers?
It's a silo. Yeah, not a bunker, but a upright silo, being 90 feet in height.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you. I'd like to listen to all of the delegations And after we heard them, I have a suggestion of how we can handle this.
The ones that are on the half load exemption?
Yeah, it might save us some time.
We can do that if council's amenable. Yeah. I see some other thing. Okay, let's do that. If there's no more questions from Mr. Fry, we can move on and hear from, actually, I'm not sure that we have someone here from Vandell Construction. I think Mr. Pomponi was going to speak to that one. First, before you go, Mark, is there anything else for Mr. Fry? Okay, Mr. Fry, if you want to turn your video and your microphone off, but stay in the meeting, and we'll hear about the next half load exemption request, and then we'll deal with both of them together.
Okay, yep.
Go ahead, Mr. Pomponi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've had some further communications with the next request for the half load limits to be lifted on Snyder's Flats Road. The site is subject to a Planning Act application. And we had informed them late yesterday, and I called them today as well, the people requesting this, which is Vandell's, and informed them that site alteration application would apply for this property. There's an active application under the Planning Act. However, the details of the development agreement are still being finalized. They're fairly close. With that, they were accepting that the better process for them to go through would be the Planning Act application. And I'd like to just remind council a few meetings ago, we had a similar request where there was a request to lift the half load restrictions on a property that was subject to site alteration. And we had received an opinion from our solicitor that to lift the half load restriction on a site that was subject to site alteration would be counter and would go against the site alteration bylaw, which is a bylaw passed by council, and that it should not occur. So again, we're talking with the Stephanis development people. They were accepting of this, and they did not appear here tonight because they accepted that they would have to go through either site alteration or to finalize the development application. Once a development application is dealt with, and we do have a development agreement in place, it will deal with such matters as maintenance and any damage and repairs that are required. So it's not required tonight. If you have any questions, that'd be great.
Any questions? Yeah, Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Mark. Snyder's Flats Road, is it going to be reconstructed this year? Are they going to dig it up to put services in? Are we going to see curb and gutter this year? And maybe one coat of asphalt by fall?
Looking for Mr. Poupet on that one, are we?
Thank you.
And that's not, yeah, go ahead. Will.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councilor Martin. As far as we know, yes, they are moving ahead with that and getting the engineering plans, and we are just waiting to receive those. But our plan certainly is to have that work occur this year. But I think the concern with the exemption, and we were willing to move ahead with granting the exemption here because of that fact. However, in light of them not having planning approvals is the real problem. So we can't circumvent that process. So they need to follow the planning process, and that's the awkwardness there. So we cannot endorse an exemption on half load. I think that puts council in a bit of an awkward position personally.
Okay, so they need to finish the planning process before we really need to worry about the half load, because can't do anything until the planning process is complete.
Correct.
That's correct, Madam Mayor. And if I could add, when we were drafting the site alteration bylaw, we specifically put a clause in there to deal with these situations where they were sort of in limbo, where they had some planning approvals, but not the details of the engineering. So a clause was specifically put in there to deal with this, and that's what we're facing right now.
So we trust that Mr. Pomponi and Mr. Coupe are talking together and working those things out. Okay, very good. Then we'll move back to Mr. Fry.
No, we got one more.
We've got, no,
Same.
Sure.
9.4.
It's the fourth delegation.
that's not a half load exemption, though,
Yes,
is it?
half load exemption request on Mary Hill Road.
Sorry, that is not on my agenda. There's 4. Okay, the next one. I'm sorry, I don't have that on my. Oh, okay, I've got, sorry, Mr. DeBoer. There it is. It's out of order. Thank you. Mr. DeBoer, we'll hear from you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, basically, I've been building in the town of Maryhill for the last 3.5 years. And my site is about 1,000 feet from the 4-way stop on Maryhill Road and St. Charles Street. And this is a school zone and a church, and it's 40-kilometer-an-hour school zone there. And I'm just looking for an exemption to removal of this section for Half Load Road. I've been there building for 4 years now, and it always kind of seems to handcuff us every spring. And it's a process that it's for 2 months that the half load season is on, and really, in my mind, it's more of about a 3-week period where the frost is not is coming out of the road and not it's not really prevalent after, say, I don't know. I mean, I would think that it would probably not be prevalent after April 1st, and we're basically we can't we're handcuffed until May 1st. As an example of that, on March 4th, we poured a floor there on a new home. And instead of having 2.5 trucks of cement, we had 13 trucks of cement going past the school zone and whatnot, just because we had to get the floor poured. And the temperatures were minus 18 for that first week of March. So it just, it just seems that it's kind of odd that there's an arbitrary date of March 1st to April 30th for half load season. And I would prefer if we could deal with it on a case by case basis. If we cannot get an exemption on that first 1,000 feet of that road, and that it possibly gets dealt through staff. We do build in other municipalities, and it usually is dealt through staff as opposed to having to go to council for something like this. So that's sort of what I'm looking to do there. And like I said, it would be nice if it could get exempt completely for the first 1,000 feet. But if, as a worst case scenario, that it just gets dealt with through staff.
okay, thank you. So your suggestion is we change our bylaw to allow staff to make those decisions and just come to council if you don't like staff's decision? Is that basically the thing?
That's correct. And like I said, that's.
Oh, you just muted yourself. There we go.
And we build in, Center Wellington, Pushlinch, over in Erin, and that's basically what we do if we are in a bind like this.
Okay,
And given that we've got, basically summer's arrived early or spring has arrived early, we're basically in a holding zone here for the next 5 weeks. If we can't get any sort of an exemption on this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shantz, go ahead.
Thank you, through you to, I guess, Arnold first. You say you do deal in other municipalities, and how do they handle it then? Do they put the signs up during the half load season and you have to abide by it? And how much notice do they give you and how does that work?
Basically, it's a phone call to the roads department, and they will issue us, clearance to go ahead based on, if there's lots of frost in the road, say March 5th or March 8th, or if there's a 3-week period where where the frost is coming out of the road, and by April 5th or whatever, the frost is out of the road and we're good to go. And that's probably indicative of this particular year, where basically everything, the winter ended March 6th, and we're already, I can't imagine there'd be frost in the road at this time, but they don't, it does not go through council. It's just a case-by-case basis with the roads department and other municipalities. I'm not saying they're all like that, but there is a few that are like that.
Okay, Councillor Shantz, go ahead.
Okay, and so they have signage up that says it is half load, and then you phone in and get an exemption. Is that how that works?
Correct. Yes.
And if I could just follow up with Mr. Poupet and ask if that would be a reasonable way to do things. What is your feeling on that?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Shantz. We can attest that the frost is still in the road. It hasn't left. We're not doing our gravel road inspections until actually next week. And, you have to act when it happens for us to do a good job and assessing those gravel road networks. What the struggle, I guess, we have, it's a resourcing challenge. It's obviously there as a blanket. It's March 1st to April 30th. It's a Highway Traffic Act a blanket rule. And our bylaw is set up that is a council authorization. It is not at the staff level. I think it would still struggle if we had this on the staff level. I don't know how many council delegations we're going to avoid because we are a bit sticky on protecting the road. I think what we would look to do, and I think what maybe Mr. DeBoer is pointing to as well, is the the change in seasons are happening. We know that. You may have a problem in March where that's the big problem, or in February. We look back a couple of years ago, you could have claimed half load then in March or in February, sorry, when we had a lot of freeze thaw, right? That's really when your road network are the most susceptible. So I think we would see it sliding, but that's time and effort. So what we typically try to do is through reconstruction projects or paving projects, we'll look to see if we can eliminate half load requirements on some of those rural roads as we go through and renovate or reconstruct them. That's what we're doing right now. But it's a valid discussion. It's something that we can certainly look into more and maybe have a bit of a sliding half load season.
Anyone else? Councillor Romahan.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shantz, to I guess Jared, I'd be interested in having that discussion only because this year it's kind of we got a lot of requests this year, and I don't really know much about the roads. Like if the frost is in the roads even a little bit, is it going to damage the road? At what point, I guess, would it be where it's like completely safe? And if you said you're doing an inspection next week to look at the roads, I'm wondering if this can be something that we just defer until we hear back from staff. If the roads are safe good to go, then just open it up before the end of March. I don't know if that's possible, but if there isn't any more frost and no potential damage to the roads, then why keep them closed? And maybe you'll have an answer for that.
Sure. So through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Merlihan, I guess a couple of comments maybe. For sure, we're doing our inspections next week. Certainly can talk it over with Mr. Anderson, who will be out there and talk about what we can do coming forward. I think I just want to remind everybody, it's an incredibly unusual year. I agree. However, our half-load exemptions have been in the rural roads for as long as certainly I've been here. They didn't just show up. So they've been here a long time. It's unfortunate to the situations that have occurred. And I think they're very individual, and everybody's needs are individual too. So it's a very, very odd year. There's no question about that. And I guess it does sort of fall down to a bit of a staffing resource challenge as well, and to police all the roads. So the bylaw is set that it is only council approval. There is no option for staff to approve. It is a council approval only. So that's something we can certainly explore going forward. If there's a delegation of authority there, we can talk about that. And I'm not sure in practical sense how we decide to enact it and not enact it. We remind Waterloo Regional Police Services every year that it's March 1st, and we ask them to actively patrol our roads. So that is occurring. We know that. And it is a hard date. And again, it was implemented under the Highway Traffic Act to protect roads, which we know are the most susceptible when frost is moving and your material is not all the friction is there due to the water and the frost and the movement and so forth. So as soon as you get loading on that, you got a big problem, and that costs money, of course. And we know we have an infrastructure deficit. So therein lies the challenge. Maybe we talk about something where there's significant deposits or payment for such uses or exemptions. I'm not sure, but I'm just I think there is another discussion to be had on this, and we can certainly bring that forward at another council meeting.
Councilor McMillan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. It might be a question for Mr. DeBoer, but it's more just a comment. This isn't anything about the weather this year being different. This is just Pinestone Homes business would be more profitable if we didn't have the half load restriction for as long as we did. I think that half load restriction, like Mr. Poupe said, has been in force as long as we can remember. I'm always up for reviewing things, whatever it is, at all times. I think this is the way it's always been, is a bad reason to do things, but we haven't hired new roads crew in how long? We got a couple of temp contracts in last budget. I'd be really worried about adding more workload to our roads crew when we're probably understaffed, and stretching those guys pretty thin already. So I don't know, that half load restriction's been in place a long time. I'd have a tough time granting it, just because it's a drag on a really profitable business.
It definitely is more costly. The pour that we did on March 4th, like I said, as opposed to having 2.5 cement trucks, there was 13 cement trucks that go through a 40-kilometer-per-hour zone past the school. So it did cost quite a bit more, and that's fine. I absorbed that. But I guess what I'm getting at now is that, and maybe not next week, but the week after, we'll still have another month of half load season. And I've got to think that everything would be fine after next week. I'm not looking to go pour cement tomorrow or even next week, but I also really don't want to wait a whole entire month of April to have to get back out there again. And when everything, it seems like it would be fine. And if staff can do an inspection and grant approval on that, I would appreciate it. And it just saves having to wait until the end of April.
Thank you, Mr. DeBoer. Are there any other questions for Mr. DeBoer? Okay, then I'll ask you to mute your mic, please, Mr. DeBoer, and we'll discuss your situation. And
okay.
Price, unless I've missed another one. No? Okay. Good.
Okay.
So what do we want to do here, Council? Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you. It is true that every season is different, and this March has certainly been unusual. We did give an exemption on Craft Drive for the first week in March, but it was -10 every night. So that didn't affect the road. We had a delegation of Florida Road and they wanted an exception from the last week in March, first week in April. That'd be the poorest time. We said no. And I would say no to all of these. But considering the year, I drive gravel roads, I was on them today, they all seem to be dry. Jared said there's frost in them. I was in Farmer's Lane today where there's a few frost boils, but I think generally our roads are in pretty good shape this year. And if he would confirm, well, we'll see what the next couple of weeks bring. But I had written down that we could maybe look at it from the 21st, I think. That's what I wrote down, and I think Mr. Fry said the 19th. If the roads are really dry and confirmed that the frost is out, maybe we could just drop those last 2 weeks. That might help everybody. That'd be sort of my proposal. I don't know if there's any support for that or not.
Council? Councilor McMillan and then Shantz and then Rohan.
Yeah, I don't know. When we're talking about a farmer who's lost a farm to fire, I think there's empathy expressed from different councillors in this meeting to that. That's a really tough situation. I have less sympathy for a business owner that, you know, just makes a valid point that the weather's changing, but we are not resourced to make those decisions the way that it might make sense from the outside. And when we look at, you know, we're talking about 4 years of homes being built in that subdivision. Housing prices for those homes, if they haven't doubled, have come pretty close to doubling in those 4 years. Like, that's a really, really profitable business. And I don't know that we should be putting our infrastructure at risk. Valid though the point may be, we can't structure our staff and hire staff in time to reflect that reality. So, you know, I'd be willing to talk about the farm, because I think, you know, you lost a farm in a fire, or lost some outbuildings in a fire. That one I'm willing to talk and learn more about, but not for a home building, not for a subdivision, not the way our staff is set up currently.
Councilor Shantz?
Yeah, thank you. I'm in agreement with Scott, Councilor McMillan. I agree, because there's a need for the silos, and the crop is not going to wait. So I have a bit of a empathy for that, and I think I agree. I don't have an issue granting that. Having said that, I guess the problem is if the frost isn't out of the ground at that point, then we have potential for road damage. So I'm suggesting that we wait for the 2 weeks and see how it is, and if the roads seem to be fine, then we go ahead and grant it. If they're not fine, then I think we have to stick to the half load season, albeit it costs more, but the job can get done. But that would be my suggestion.
Councilor Rohan?
Yeah, would it be okay if we heard, I just want to hear Councilor Martin's proposal again. I just to get it right in my head, if that's okay.
Councilor Martin?
Okay, not a lot different than what Councilor Shantz said. I said that it looked like there's an early spring. And the roads at this point are pretty dry. Jared said there's still frost in them. But if the roads are dry in another 2 weeks, or by the 19th or 21st of April, and the frost is gone, they're not going to do any damage. And at that point, I'd be willing to lift the half load for the last 2 weeks in April.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm okay if there isn't a risk to the roads at this point, that staff will say yes, the frost is gone, then I can totally support that notion. So.
Council? So is this a motion that's moved and seconded then?
I don't think it was officially a motion.
Could we just defer the decision for 2 weeks? I can make that a motion to defer this till staff can report back on the condition of the roads.
When's our next meeting, folks?
3 weeks.
April 13th.
April 13th.
13.
Our next meeting is April 13th. So the request is to defer the decision until April 13th for both, for all, well, for both.
Yeah, I guess for all of them, yeah.
Okay. Councilor Martin.
No, I'm fine with that. And, you know, again, if staff say the roads are, the frost is gone, the roads are dry, when we get to the 19th, the 21st of April, then just, you know, give them 2 weeks that they can get their stuff done. I think would be reasonable.
Mr. Fry, if I can just ask you, does your concrete company need lead time?
It's a good question. I would have to talk with them as well as the contractor that builds the silo. And I'm sure they would like a little heads up, yeah. But I can let them know that there's the decision will come April 13th. And they would have to work from that then, I guess, with whatever other projects are happening.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Shantz.
Thank you, through you to Mr. Fry. Would you not be willing to take a chance that the roads will be good at that point and book your contractor? And then if something happens that it doesn't work, pay the upcharge on the extra trucking, or would it automatically stall the project?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably that would fall back on to me for whether we would do 120 trucks at the 2 meters opposed to 26. And I guess how much they would push in needing to get a start on it in time for the feed that comes off the field. But yeah, I'm sure it would be an option just to let them know that we're planning on by the 13th or finding out by the 13th, and that April 19th is a go unless the roads aren't ready. I could let them know.
Did you? Yes, no.
Yeah, I'm just speaking like, I think Councilor Merlehan moved that and Councilor Martin seconded it. If we're speaking to that motion, I think we need to be really careful here. We still have more than a few weeks to have people come in and make requests. And I don't think this is a matter of our staff going out and checking 2 roads to say whether or not there's frost on there. I'd be open to deferring Mr. Fry's request and having it be a one-off and saying, yeah, anybody who loses a farm to a fire can come and our staff will go and check, you know, a road into your farm to see if the frost is out. I'm not prepared to have our staff going to check every road the way they're currently constructed to say whether or not the frost is out of those roads. So I'm not going to vote in favor of the motion on the table to defer both. I would support, you know, continuing to work with Mr. Fry to see if we could come up with solutions to his problem. I think that's not a foreseeable problem, and we can work with him because of that. So I'm not going to vote in favor of the motion.
Mr. Poupet, could you just clarify? You talked about the roads crews going out and checking roads next week, I think you said. Can you just clarify sort of what happens and what a deferral would mean for your staff?
Yeah, to you, Mayor Shantz. What we're doing is we're actually transitioning from contracted services for our road needs study. And that's, as part of that, we are assessing our gravel network first, because that is the most crucial time to look at our gravel network as when the frost is coming out of the ground. So we have been keeping an eye on that, and there are some hot spots that indicate that. So it's our position that next week is going to look really good to get a better assessment. I guess as council was speaking, I was trying to think as well. So for fear of doing that on the fly, I think the problem is Mr. Fry's property is on a gravel road. And you know, those are the most susceptible to damage, and likely why half load generally exists, right? When you at least have asphalted concrete on top of other roads. But I also appreciate the sensitivity. So what I maybe am going to suggest to council for consideration would, if it is council's will, for staff to work with Mr. Fry, and if that is council's will, to come up with allowing Mr. Fry to utilize full loads of concrete for which to build a silo, then would council be willing to allow us to discuss with Mr. Fry some options and then present to council? Is that possible? And something that I would be thinking of is obviously damage is long term, but I know the roadway, it is very low volume road. You know, is there possibility to get deposits or to deal with repair work and that sort of thing that does not put stress onto township staff or resourcing? Is there something there that can be discussed or talked with and then maybe brought back to council?
Councillor Martin and then Shantz.
Thank you. I'm afraid we're making a much bigger issue out of this than what has to be. I think this is fairly simple, as I stated before, that if at the end of the month or by the 21st or 19th, everything's dry, the roads are dry, the frost is gone, we can move ahead with that. And when I look at the group here, I'm the only one farm background, so I'm going to have to say, I'll ask the farmer's going to ask the farmer a question, and that is Mr. Fry. The way the lands look in the countryside, and if we don't get a lot of rain, I'm sure we'll see equipment tilling up soil in the next week. Am I correct?
Yeah, it could happen, yeah.
Which would certainly tell you that the frost is gone.
Yeah, you would think if they're putting seed in the ground. Now, the fields aren't driven on like a road is. The road can, where it's driven on, it goes deeper.
It goes, I know that.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to defer. Oh, Councillor Shantz, sorry, you wanted to speak.
Sorry,
I know your farming background too.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Mr. Poupet what kind of damage happens to the road. Is it just a matter of grading it, or are we looking at bringing some more aggregate in if there's more damage, or what normally happens?
You, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Shantz, it's actually a punching that occurs. So you lose your strength and your base. You've got the subgrade material that comes right up through, and you've got this mixing. So now you've got this siltitious material on top that you can only fully excavate out really to repair the damage. It's significant and very costly. So it's not simply just a regrading and making it look good. It is that mixing of the subgrade with the granular base.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to defer. I'm going to call the question to defer until April 13th. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, so we will we'll bring this back on April 13th, and okay, I trust that you'll have a little more better idea by then of where the roads are at in 3 weeks' time as well. So we can discuss it again.
And Mayor Shantz, just for clarity then, staff will do what we were intending to do, so there's not a change there. We can report back to council about our findings, and then ultimately this will be a council decision what they decide to do with the half load exemptions.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Mr. Fry, we'll deal with this on April 13th, and hopefully you can line up your concrete, and it looks like the weather's going to stay warm, so let's hope for a good outcome for you.
So do I tune in as a delegate that evening or no?
You can come as a delegate again, sure, if you'd like, and we can.
Or is that a decision that gets made and I'm not on the call? I just find out through email that decision, or?
That's up to you. Welcome to come and delegate, or if you just wanted to listen in, you could come and be there if we have questions, right? Yeah. So you could come and present to us again, or you could just come to answer questions if we have any more questions of you,
Okay.
or and wait and hear from us, whatever you prefer. Councilor McMillan, did you want to say something before?
I just wanted to suggest the delegate could also send an email to all of council prior to the meeting if you didn't want to come and delegate, but did want to contribute something before that as well. You're always free to call us or email us as well.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. DeBoer, then your question will be dealt with on that same night then.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor Shantz,
Yes.
just want to let you know that I'm having intermittent internet problems, so I'm not leaving the meeting when you don't see me, but I'm still here.
Oh, that's so good to know. Thank you. We'll work on those. We have one more delegation, and that's Mr. Ron Bender and Mr. Alex Vandersloos from Schlegel Developments. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz and members of council. My colleague Alex and I are here to be very brief this evening, really just to say thank you. We did make a presentation at the secondary planning meeting for the Stockyards district on March 9th. We really wanted to thank Mr. Jeremy Vink and Mr. John Scarfone for their diligence in following up with us to reach a resolution of the issues that we brought forward. We had a number of conversations and helpful discussions. We've provided a letter that outlines those resolutions, which hopefully you have before you. And again, yeah, really just here to say thank you. Realize it's been a long project in the making. It's almost at the finish line, and it's very important for the farmers market district, and we appreciate all the effort. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for the delegates while we have them here? No. Okay, thanks for coming in and for your words. Thank you. We have no unfinished business, and we have a number of items though on the consent agenda. We have a statement of remuneration expenses. We have investment statement, treasurer's statement for development charges, and treasurer's statement for cash in lieu of Parkland Reserve Fund. And we have technical advisory group minutes and Woolwich Heritage Committee minutes. Does anyone want to speak to any of those? Someone like to move them all? Councillor McMillan, Councillor Martin, Councillor Ryan, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, if we could pull the Woolwich Heritage Committee, they have a request in that report for a council member to be part of the committee, and I would be interested. I'd put my name forward for that if we want to talk about that, or you can move the other stuff, I guess.
We've actually got that under staff reports. It's number 2. So
okay. I was thinking of something else. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
I take your volunteer, and we'll
okay.
just put it in there. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. Good to see that you're enthusiastic. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor then? And that's carried. Thanks. Motion that council convenes in committee of the whole. Moved by Councillor Shantz and Councillor Rohan. All those in favor? That's carried. Our first item, sorry, I'm just making sure it's kind of a complicated agenda I have here in front of me. Our first item is the Stockyards Secondary Plan Recommendation Update, and Mr. Vink has a memo regarding some proposed revisions. Mr. Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. You have the memo in front of you about the changes we made to address both the Schlegels and a little bit with the geese lands. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. We addressed as many as we could, and for the most part, as you heard from even the Schlegels, they're relatively happy with the way things have progressed. We've made these changes in the official plan, but mostly in the zoning. One thing I do want to highlight is the last section where staff is proposing a change in the resolution to be passed. We're just tweaking the wording. There was just a bit of concerns, and we met with the city Waterloo and the region. The city just wanted it very clear what the intent was once council adopted the official plan. So the intent is that we pass it on to the region, which was always intended, but we're just adding that to the resolution. As well, we just changed the wording around the zoning component. We're not actually asking council to adopt it tonight. There is the potential through the official plan review with the region that there might be changes in the secondary plan that may reflect into the zoning. So we're just asking council accept it as it's kind of proposed to you, but we'll bring the bylaw back once the region approves the secondary plan and moves that forward. And then we'll just finalize the bylaw at that time at a later date. So that just alleviates a little bit of concerns from the region and the city too, because there might be some minor changes to the bylaw. I am willing to answer any questions council has.
Any questions for Mr. Vink? No. Would someone like to move the revised recommendation as is presented? Councillor Rohan and Councillor Shantz. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next is recommendations from committee. Councillor Rohan. You have
This is my pecuniary interest from last week. It's number 3, the Drayton Entertainment request for support. I'll turn my video off for that one.
Let's do that one first to get it out of the way then. Would someone like to move that was the grant for $25,000 of support from the accommodation tax fund to Drayton Entertainment. I have a mover and a seconder on that, Councillor Shantz, and seconder, Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. You can come back, Ms. Councillor Rohan. Thank you. Numbers 1 and then 4 to 6 on the summary of recommendations of the committee of the whole. Motion to adopt those as amended. And is that the?
Sorry, no, amending one was for item number 2. So it can be as presented.
Thank you. So a motion to adopt the recommendations as presented then. Moved by Councillor Shantz and Councillor Rohan. And we have, just for people watching, we have a zone change application from Thomas Field for blocks 47 and 48. We endorsed the Region of Waterloo resolutions passed during the 2021 budget discussions. And that was to, we had a number of them supporting vulnerable businesses. Just trying to read them without reading 3 pages of items here. Including a 0.5% tax levy for affordable housing in the regional budget. Also looking at an additional site for mobile camera for speed enforcement. And for increasing funding to social services for mental health and homelessness and housing. Also adopting a tiered policing system, amending the interest arbitration system, and amending the Police Services Act to give municipalities greater control over the budgets and activities of the police services they're responsible for. And also consider the involvement of local healthcare teams in regard to crisis, mental health, and addiction services. The Waterloo Region Police Services Board in regard to alternate service models, and provincial and federal governments and area MPs and MPPs in regard to legislative changes and investments, and local municipal councils. And that there was one-time funding from the tax stabilization reserve to go into the 2021 operating budget. Those all happened at regional council, and our council was just supporting regional council in those initiatives. And then also supporting Township of Lake of Bays to support restaurants in stage 2 based on capacity, with capacity limits based on size. And we had one more, and that was also endorsing the city of Sarnia on color-coded capacity limits, advocating that they adjust the capacity limit, similar to the previous one, for dining, restaurants, sporting and recreational facilities, places of worship, event centers, and all retail small businesses as part of the color-coded system. So I think I got a mover and seconder already. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. A motion, the Council of the Township of Woolwich considering report C05-2021 respecting an appointment request from the Woolwich Heritage Committee. Oh, this is the one, okay. I missed something here, sorry.
12-3-1.
I missed a couple of things. We are moving on to staff reports and memos, and first we will, before we get to the Heritage Committee, we will ask Mr. Vink to talk about Hawkridge Home Subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Madam Mayor. So if you recall back last year, Council deferred decision on the Hawkridge subdivision applications and requested that they come back by March, well, the end of March. Just giving you a verbal update on that. Unfortunately, we're unable to get the report back to Council at this point. They revised their noise study, and we've been working with Sulco with in regards to that noise study. What has unfortunately happened is that the noise study is being peer reviewed again with the region, and that is taking a bit more time than we had anticipated. There are some concerns around the noise study at this point because they discovered an error and very deep within the noise study is the best way I can explain it, which has brought about the changes and just delayed things. So we're hoping to get an answer from the region in the next week or two, which will then mean the report will probably come back likely in May at this point in time before we can get a full report back to Council. So that's where we kind of sit at this point of time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Vink? Thanks, Jeremy. Now we'll get to appointment of council member to the Woolwich Heritage Committee, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Just very briefly, this is, I believe, the report that Council Merlingham was talking about. The Heritage Committee has requested that Council appoint a member to sit on the committee, starting at their meeting in April. The terms of reference do already allow for this, so all that would be required is for one member of Council to put their name forward, and for Council to appoint that member to sit on the Heritage Committee.
Okay, thank you. I believe we've had a name come forward, so unless someone wants to, Councillor McMillan?
No, I'd be happy to have Councilor Merlihan on that committee. I was wondering, it's not in the report. Oftentimes, terms of reference for committees of council will allow other council members to sit on the committee with a voice and no vote where, you have one representative, but anybody else can sit in on a meeting and just know what's going on. And I was wondering, I don't need an answer right now, but perhaps Mr. Smith could let us know if the terms of reference for this committee allow for other counselors to sit on the committee as just a participant without being council's representative.
Smith, what do our rules say?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have the terms of reference in front of me, but I can tell you that it is a public meeting. So another council member, I believe, could attend the meeting. They would be a non-voting member. I believe the committee may be looking at their terms of reference at the next meeting, so there may be an opportunity to change that if there was more interest from council.
I think a fair point, it's a public meeting, and so really anyone can listen in. Right? Councillor Shantz? Welcome back.
Just to clarify, Councillor McMillan, are you asking to have a voice there without a vote, or just to sit in on the meetings?
Usually it would be voice, no votes. You would have input, but if it's a public meeting, a committee like that, most of the time they're going to allow people to speak, whether they're counselors or anyone else. So I wouldn't be too particular with how the writing is in the terms of reference. It just, usually it's voice and no vote with things like that.
Okay, it's a committee of council, so they would probably operate similar to us, that if the member of the public was there and they wish to delegate, they could delegate. And so maybe we'll get Mr. Smith just to clarify if it's a committee of council, how that would work for council members, and get back to us. Okay, thanks. I believe you moved Councillor McMillan to appoint Councillor Merlehan.
If I didn't, I'm happy to now.
Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor Shantz, all those in favor? And that's carried. I hope you're in favor. You did.
Oh, I muted. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should vote on myself, but yes, I support myself being on there.
That's good. All right, our chief building official, Dave Heichert, is here to talk about the termite control bylaw. Mr. Heichert, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, and good evening to council. I'm here tonight to speak to the new termite control bylaw as well, looking to have council approve this bylaw tonight. This bylaw goes hand in hand with our 5-year termite control program that is anticipated to start in the spring. And the bylaw speaks to key parts of the control program. For example, property treatments, removal of infested materials, and trapping of termites. In addition to the program, the bylaw then lays out a path forward after 5 years on how staff can deal with future termite issues on individual properties, as many of the same prevention measures used in the control program could be used on those properties. And the bylaw also gives staff legal access to properties for inspections and to ensure the bylaw is being complied with. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions council may have with my report or the bylaw.
Questions? Councilor Merlehan?
Yeah, thank you. Through you to Mr. Heichert. So this bylaw, just to be clear with anybody watching, it won't be a surprise to any of the homeowners. So people are out there thinking termites, do I have termites? Clearly, we've been communicating as a township with the properties that are have an issue at the moment. Is that correct?
Yep. Through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Merlehan. Absolutely. In the very near future, properties that are impacted by the control program will be receiving a mail out with a letter explaining the program, information about chemicals to be used, treatments. It kind of very nicely outlines everything that will be included in the 5-year program.
Okay, thank you.
And in addition, the people who are involved are already aware that their properties will be involved. I think that was Councilor Rohan's question. Correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, to you, Mayor Shantz, absolutely, those programs were included in our survey areas back in 2019. So the properties have been surveyed and we've communicated with them results in the past.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to move the recommendation then? Moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Rohan. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Mr. Coupé, we'll call on you again to talk about our drinking water system annual summary report for 2020.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, and through you to members of council. This is an information report. As council is aware, you are the owners of Woolwich's drinking water systems. So this is important that you are aware of that. And this is a legislative requirement through the Safe Drinking Water Act. The resolution is simply for council to receive the report and for us to be able to provide it to our neighbors where we share our water systems with. We have received their reports from Waterloo, Kitchener, and the region, as the region looks after Wellesley's system. Once again, Woolwich is a little bit behind on our drinking water report, but we are compliant. And I think that is the key message, that we have a due date of March 31st. So I want to trumpet the fact that we are continuing to be compliant. And with that, I would, I guess there is an important piece here though. When I started here was 8 years ago, we had, I believe it was 8 systems. So in a short period of time, we are now down to 4. I think that's great news. That shows good effort on the part of the region and the township working together. A lot of this has been driven by the region expanding their integrated urban system, which has allowed some reductions, and we've created what is now known as Woolwich North. And the Woolwich North system encompasses Elmira, St. Jacobs, both of the Conestoga systems that existed, the Gulf and Plains system, as well as Westmont Row. So we are aware, obviously, that the Mary Hill had already combined a few years ago, but I think that's a good news story. It helps sort of streamline our reporting and being compliant with the Safe Drinking Water Act and the legislation. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Someone like to move it and second it? Councilor Shantz and McMillan, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And you're on again. Tender award for Union Street Reconstruction Project, Mr. Coupé.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, and through you to members of council. This is our large reconstruction project for the year. I think staff were very happy in seeing the competitive nature of the pricing. We received 5 bids, and between first and fourth, let me get that correct. Yes, 5 bids, and between first and fourth, there was about a 6% spread. That is incredible, given the magnitude of the construction project. This is the largest construction project that I'm aware the township has undertaken, and it is a good one. It is along Union Street, much needed if anybody has driven that roadway. It's an important timing issue as the region has a lot of plans on working in the surrounding roads, with Church Street East coming down shortly, and plans on Arthur Street. So the timing is important, and we're quite happy to seek council's endorsement to award the tender for the reconstruction of Union Street to J. Weber Contracting at a cost of $4,349,799.43 after HST rebate. And we're seeking authorization for mayor and clerk to sign the contract documents, as well as land purchase and easement agreements. We are also seeking authorization for the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement for aerial trespass in favor of Waterloo North Hydro, as well as for the purchases of property at 1 Union Street, 15 Herb Street, 36 Wyatt Street, and 101 Bonnie Crescent, and award the contract and administration and inspection services to GHD at a cost of $110,226.43 after HST. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Questions? Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor McMillan and Merlihan. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Gibson Park accessible washroom replacement and Annie MacArthur. Welcome, Ms. MacArthur.
Thank you. Take a little heat off Jared for a few minutes. So through you, Madam Mayor, and just a couple of highlights from the report. Council is aware that this project has been identified in the capital forecast for a number of years. Township staff have previously identified this asset for replacement. However, sufficient funding has not yet been available in our capital program to fully fund the project. Staff have had ongoing concerns with the existing structure, specifically with the physical state of it, the location of it, some safety concerns, sight lines from the playground, and accessibility as well from the playground. Staff are grateful for Kate's cause and their continued community mindedness and willingness to partner with us to see this and other projects through to fruition. Staff support replacing and relocating this facility, originally built in 1970, with a new accessible structure to support what we know is to be an incredibly busy public space and the need to provide accessible, appropriate municipal amenities for our community. As noted in the report, several factors have impacted the project scope and size over the last number of months. Township staff have spent significant time with the contractor and our community partner, and all of the departments collaboratively working through the site plan review process, and with that exploring the most efficient manner to construct this facility and connect to municipal services. As this facility is a piece of township infrastructure, staff do feel it's a really good, solid return on investment and recommend that council support providing $50,000 in infrastructure dollars to augment the $200,000 raised by Kate's cause to ensure this project is completed in 2021. There is funding available now in the Infrastructure Reserve Fund that would be redirected towards this project. And that is based on some quotes we've obtained for other projects that have now come in under budget, which I wasn't aware of and ready to recommend to council at budget time. So with that, Madam Mayor and council, be happy to answer any questions. And I do have Thomas on the line as well, who can potentially answer any technical questions regarding the hookup to municipal services.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. MacArthur?
Thank you through you to Ms. MacArthur. Is this going to be a all season, or is it just a seasonal structure? And then the second question I have, while my internet is still working, is what is the ongoing cost of the pumping station? That's something new that's developed recently, and just wondering if that's going to be a large expense.
So through you, Madam Mayor, the first question, it will not be a year-round. It will be similar to the facility, both facilities at Bolander Park and at Lions Park, and they'll be seasonal from around May until October. That's what we'd be recommending at this time. In terms of the cost for the pumping, I don't know if Thomas can talk about that. I think it won't be any more really than the other facilities that we have. Originally, there was some talk of having a holding tank and a septic system, which is not permissible when we can, in fact, hook up to municipal services. Thomas, do you want to augment that, or does that answer your question, Councillor Shawns?
Yeah, it answers the first one. I just want to know if it's going to be a large expense. Usually when I hear pumping stations, it throws up a bit of a flag.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So I don't know, I might actually defer to, if by chance maybe Jared could maybe assist with this. It is a pumping system, something that we don't have at any of our other washrooms currently. However, speaking to our other pumps in our facilities, we do tend to get, a 10 to 15 year lifespan for those. But Jared, if you wouldn't mind jumping on that. Anticipating this, but
I will tell. I mean, through you, Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Shantz. Obviously, gravity is preferred when we're dealing with wastewater removal. Pumping stations and small systems such as this, I would say, are needed because you can't get gravity, and that's simply the facts. So, is there some ongoing maintenance? For sure, there would be more than a gravity system, but I don't think staff ever felt that was unreasonable. I think that the benefit of the washroom was far outweighed any of the maintenance costs, right? So I think the fact that it's new and we have an opportunity now to create a good maintenance plan, shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, and I apologize for not giving a heads up.
That's okay. We have to keep him on his toes. Councillor Merlihan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor Shantz. I have kind of two little things. The site plan that I'm looking at, it's kind of hard to figure out where things are based on that, because there is a big gazebo, or it's not a gazebo, but a picnic area. And I don't really see where that is. I guess I would probably be off of that a little bit. If you could talk to the site plan a little bit as to how it connects, and I understand there's some pathways and such to it. This diagram is, it's a little foreign looking to me. And then I guess the other question would be just the expectations of the aesthetics of the building. The plan just shows it looks like a cinder block type washroom, and I'm wondering if it will have some sort of finish on it to not look like a cinder block building.
Ms. MacArthur?
I can answer that. Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So looking at the site plan, Councillor McMillan or Merlihan, to the left of the drawing is the where the playground is currently, and south of the washroom location would be that picnic shelter. Does that make sense here? Or?
Okay, is First Street?
First Street is
That's
north
where the pipes
of the
are
washroom.
going to, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
South of the washroom, south of the orange building, there is the picnic shelter, and then to the west or to the left is the playground.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got that.
And then the finish of the building. Yeah, still something really that we're working through. We haven't really gotten quite that far yet. But that is, the aesthetic of the building is definitely something we will consider. Whether it's half finished with siding or painted, that sort of thing. For sure, I don't imagine it will be finished as a, as you. Perfect.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, not a question, just a comment. I just wanted to thank staff for the work on this. There's municipalities across the province that are just doing the bare minimum to keep up with the Accessibility Act, and we are with Kate's Cause Park, with the splash pad. We're leading the way in the country probably with accessibility activities for people in the whole community. So thank you to our staff, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the Kate's Cause people as well. Their tireless effort to make projects like this happen. They are certainly an asset to our community. So thank you to them, and thank you to our staff for making this happen.
Thanks. Excuse me, Councillor McMillan. We certainly are blessed with some very generous people in our community, and it's helped us immensely to provide the services that we can. Anything else for Ms. MacArthur? Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Merlihan and McMillan, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And Ms. MacArthur, Director of Recreation and Community Services, you are up for the next one, Office of the Fire Marshal application for training funds.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, to Council. Nothing really else to highlight other than that's what's in the report is that the Ontario Fire Marshal did put out this opportunity to apply for grant funding in the amount, we were eligible for $10,700. It came out last week, so it was a really quick turnaround for the fire department. I think they've come up with some innovative training strategies that they like to implement with these funds. So the application has come in, or has been submitted. Will be made aware of the approval process in the next couple of weeks, but looking for council to endorse if we do receive those funds and can redirect them towards these the 4 training concepts that were presented in the report. I'm happy to take any questions that council might have.
Thank you. We're always looking for partnerships like that. There are questions. I'll move the second. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor McMillan. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thanks. Mr. Vanderhoff, Did you want to add something or?
No, sorry, I just lost my internet connection there for a second, so that's why I had to tune out there.
Yeah, not a problem, just thought I'd check. Okay, other business, I don't have anything specific from regional council this week. Any council reports, councilors? Councilor Martin?
Yeah, thank you. I have a question, and I'd just like some clarification on it. Because last week there was an email sent to Councilor Merlehan, which he sent to all of us regarding the Central Hotel, and I couldn't make any sense of it. Were we suggesting that the use wasn't proper, or that economic development didn't do their job? What seemed to be the issue here?
Councilor Merlehan.
Through you to Councillor Martin, there was a post and it wasn't an email. Well, it was an email from me. It was just a public post that somebody had posted about the Central Tavern being turned into a, I think it's an accountant office. I'm not 100% certain. Whoever posted it made some suggestions about whether or not council was doing anything. I actually hardly even recall what it said at this point, and it wasn't to make any point. It was just passing on information that's out in the community. If you don't want to be included in any of those, no problem.
Just a follow-up. No, the only reason I asked is because this building's been up for sale for 2 years. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars renovating it. It is an accounting firm, which is in town already, but it just need more room. And it's a perfect ideal spot for them. And so, you know, I think if people had their facts right, they would understand that. I think they're a welcome addition downtown.
Councilor McMillan.
Yeah, I just feel like I gotta say this here. The suggestion from the post was that we either didn't have an economic development officer or they weren't doing their job. And I just gotta say, Jenna Morris does a fantastic job. The last year through COVID, our businesses, there's more than a few that wouldn't have survived without her. And our economic development minister or officer can't get into the business of selecting which businesses can go where. And I think we've talked about street design and how street design encourages certain types of businesses over others. That's what we can do as a council, as a corporation. But we certainly can't slag Jenna Morris for the work that she's done. It's been fantastic.
Councilor Merlehan.
Again, this wasn't something that I endorsed, just so you know, but as far as the, you know, and anybody who's lived in Elmira long enough, probably the last 20 years, the criticism that would be directed towards the downtown Elmira is that it is, largely professional services. And this is a discussion that has gone on and on and on. And it, part of the reason I shared that post is because we are going to be participating in a visioning process and re-looking at zoning and such that we wanted to do actually last year. I'm not sure the visioning would have people visioned having an accountant, downtown in a space that used to be entertainment. But that's something that we are going to be discussing probably in the next, I think it's within the next month anyway, at some sort of process. So I look forward to speaking then to that.
Sometimes we're our own worst enemies in how we talk about the downtown too. I've heard those sentiments a number of times, but when you think about it, we have a restaurant, we have a bridal store, we have a cafe, we have a coffee shop, we have a shoe store, we have jewelry store, You know, we've got a men's clothing store. So we do have a lot of amenities and a lot of different businesses in the downtown core. And sometimes I think we need to celebrate that a little bit more than we do. Councillor McMillan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, I didn't mean to suggest that it was Councilor Merlahan that was posting that. And yes, they're, you know, in a downtown core, we don't want to have all of the businesses be 9 to 5, that, you know, it turns into a ghost town at 5 o'clock. So I didn't mean to suggest that it was Councilor Merlahan's post, just wanted to respond to, you know, the work that Jenna Morris has done.
She does a fantastic job for us. I've heard nothing but good work on her behalf. Anything else? Okay, anything on the outstanding activity list? Motion that the following bylaws be introduced and read for a first and second time. We have a bylaw to authorize the execution of a memorandum of agreement with GM Blue Plan Engineering Limited for consulting services for the preliminary and detailed design tendering for the reconstruction of George Street, High Street, and Charles Street in Elmira. A bylaw to amend zoning, excuse me, bylaw 55-86. That's the Hopewell Crossing subdivision mixed use blocks. A bylaw to adopt the official plan amendment number 38 to the official plan of the Woolwich planning area. Bylaw to prevent and control termites. A bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a project data sharing agreement with the regional municipality of Waterloo Public Health and Emergency Services. That is COVID-19 vaccine appointment registrations. And a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council. Mover and seconder, Councillor McMillan, Councillor Shantz, all those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Motion that committee of the whole rise and report to council, moved by Councillor Martin and McMillan, all those in favor. I saw your hand go up.
You're like an auctioneer. Anybody moves their hand,
Yeah,
it's a bid.
Like,
Get late.
Motion that council confirms and adopts proceedings of committee of the whole. Who's gonna blink? Councillor McMillan and Merlahan, all those in favor? And that's carried. Motion that the following 3 items of correspondence were received. Does council want to take any action on the correspondence? No, just a motion to receive them. Do we need a motion?
No.
No, okay, very good. Excuse me, no public notice, no notice of closed meeting, and no notice of motion. We have the final passage of the bylaws, a motion that the following bylaws in the hands of the clerk be read a third time and finally passed, and that it be numbered as bylaw number 21-2021 to 26-2021, and that it be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal, and I'm not going to read them again. Moved by Councillor Shantz, seconded by Councillor Merlahan. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And that has come to the end of our agenda. A motion to adjourn the meeting to meet again in regular session on Tuesday, April 20th, 2020. And don't go away quite yet. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Martin, Councillor Shantz, all those in favor. And in closing, council would like to thank all who participated or tuned into the meeting tonight on our YouTube live stream and on Rogers TV. Council members and staff, just remind you to stay quietly connected on Zoom until Alex confirms that the live stream has stopped. And good night, everyone.